You're with Julian on the Brown Notes, election week 5. All my shows are just the election in Ukraine at the moment. The worst thing to happen to Australia in the last decade is the same-sex marriage vote. Might sound controversial, and the reason I say this is we have a voting bloc in this country that's very progressive and very big and growing and not affected by the Murdoch press, 2GB, or the main channels, 7, 9 and 10. And that is the under 25s. So what happened, I think, when Turnbull won the election, before that we had this very divisive vote on same-sex marriage, which I opposed happening because I shouldn't get to vote on your rights. It's a disgusting thing. But if the Liberal Party planned it, my hat's off to them because it was a genius move. Under 25s came out in record numbers to vote. Historically, they are terrible at voting. They came out in record numbers to vote for same-sex marriage. And then the election rolled round about, 8 months later, and they all stayed home and the Liberals won an election they should never have won. In fact, other than Abbott winning his one, which was a given, they shouldn't have won Turnbull's election. They shouldn't have won ScoMo's election either. But they have got across the line. So young people, we need you to vote. And it's affecting you more than anyone else. The cost of living, the inaffordability of rent and housing, and the fact you're going to have to sit at home with mum and dad. The fact that a lot of options to you that other generations had about the kind of work they do, about the kind of unpaid work they do. I'm on a community radio station. I bet throughout Australia there's an awful lot of young people now that can't do that because they need to work those extra shifts to pay the rent. These are big things for society, and this is a reshaping of society the way that Margaret Thatcher wants, John Howard wants, and no doubt the current Liberal Party as well. So it was a terrible thing. Because if we'd have gone to that election with Malcolm Turnbull, with one of the ticket items being same-sex marriage, they would have been kicked out 2 elections ago. And the world would be a better place. I still think that Labour are winning by a landslide. I called it a couple of weeks ago, but there is danger here. People that voted for somebody as odorous as Scott Morrison after he was the third choice and the 2 previous Liberal Prime Ministers were kicked out and almost everything had gone wrong, have proven they just don't care. The Murdoch press and that side of politics has groomed a generation to vote one way, to stick it to the left, who've never done them any harm in their whole lives. The right have, but they'll still vote for them in this weird Stockholm syndrome that both the UK and Australia have. And the fact they voted for someone like Scott Morrison last time, they've already proven, the Boris Johnson voters, the Trump voters, the ScoMo voters, they don't care how bad that person is. They don't care how bad their policies are. They don't care how bad their performance in office is. They're going to vote to stick it to the left. So there's always an element of worry. I do still believe that I've never seen anything to suggest. I think ScoMo's just too on the nose. I mean, he just invented himself last time and the public went, oh, look, Scott Cam, Daggy Dad, even though he wasn't that person. But I think now that most people are wise to him, I just hope they stay home. But you got apparently someone like Catherine Deves or Devies or however you say it is doing well in the polling. Well, I'm not surprised given the amount of endless press she's got. But this kind of dog whistle voting is quite scary. I'd say this, though, on the advertising front, Scott Morrison's an advertising man. The Liberal advertising game is garbage. Who in Australia at this moment isn't absolutely clawing their ears out if they hear that there's a hole in your budget, dear Labour? That has got to be the worst political ad this entire campaign. It's so grating. I mean, there are some ads where I actually make a mental note of the product so I never buy it as punishment for their advert. That would be their sad. Labour, that game, is wiping the floor with the Liberals. They will go for their little buzzwords, but, you know, every time you see that ad with Scott Morris, that's not my job, that's not my job, that's not my... These kind of things are really well done. Hats off to whoever's running the Labour Party advertising campaign. They're dropping... I criticised Labour in the opening 2 weeks of the campaign for being too soft and for offering policy again, which is what the electorate turned them nose up last time. Bill Shorten had a raft of great policies. Scott Morrison had none and just criticised what Labour were going to do and won. But I hope that they keep getting harder and harder, because they're getting pretty hard in the content of their adverts. And I think they're timing it really, really well. Hats off to whoever's managing the Labour Party advertising campaign. And I don't think they've really landed any punches. We've not seen the polls move. They obviously have that gotcha thing, which is the only thing that they've got, and it hasn't worked. And I don't think they've got anything else since. You have to remember that the Liberal... Everyone says the ABC is left-wing. The ABC is the only mainstream media in this country that's been audited for bias and found not biased. And us on the left think it's gone too far right. So the people that are too far right are claiming that the ABC is... But other than that, Channel 9, Channel 7, Channel 9, run by Peter Costello, an owner of the Sydney Morning Herald. Yeah, we've got a lot on the left in mainstream media. You got that, you got the Sydney Morning Herald, the Murdoch Press, Telegraph, all of that stuff. 2GB, biggest station, talkback station in Australia. Relentlessly, they are going to pump for Morrison. He's lost a lot of acolytes in the press that he usually has, which is a great sign. But those people who are like the public, who are brainwashed, who only want to kick the left, will come out fighting for him in the final days, and that's pretty scary. But I still don't think it will have any effect. And I think we've seen, like, people saying, oh, Albo was a failure. I put a lot of negative stuff about Albo on the thing. But people have said, oh, you know, Scott Morrison's such a much better debater than Anthony Albanese. 3 debates, Scott Morrison's for 0. He's won 0 debates. Channel 9 had to turn the voting off when Albanese got ahead of ScoMo on the public vote. So you can argue that Albanese's 2-0 up or 3-0 up, but ScoMo's 0. So his debating skills, not so great. ScoMo better on the economy. I think we can see the collapsing economy and rising cost of living. I think that's another one. ScoMo better on defence. These are all the things that he's better at. Defence. Look at the Solomon Islands. Well done, China. That was a nice move. Look at the current state of the economy. Look at the performance in the debates. And the other thing that ScoMo was campaigning on is that he was the known quantity. And what did he say 2 days ago? If you re-elect me, I'm going to change. That is not really a justification for being a known quantity. And the other sad sort of danger out there is anyone that's bought into people like One Nation and UAP who are just stalking horses for for the Liberal Party, as they always have been. If they think that I'm going to stick it to the 2 main parties, how is Clive Palmer's adverts? So we've got Advance Australia, another stalking horse for the Liberal Party, have had their adverts taken down, or they've taken them down themselves, where they've shown people like Zali, the local one here, that any one of the independents, they put like the green logo on these posters to make it look like they're voting for the Greens. So the Electoral Commission said, no, you can't do that for some reason. And they've taken them down. But how is Clive Palmer allowed to run TV ads where he says he's putting the Liberals last when they're actually preferencing the Liberals? How is that allowed? That's a flat out lie. So it is a worry, because as we've seen with the reaction to COVID, there's a lot of people out there that are seeking maverick geniuses that are going to reshape Australian politics, and the wings of the Liberal Party. So yes, we will. It will be very interesting over the next 2 weeks. I haven't seen anything to worry me, but how Bill Shorten didn't get in last time is also a deeply troubling thing. I still predict Labour in a landslide.